Hello, my name is Theo Holtweg and I'm Director of Long Range Planning for the town of Falmouth. And today I'm joined by Nathan Poor, who is the town manager for the town, and the two of us are going to talk with you a little bit about the Route 1 project. Route 1, the way it could be. This is a presentation that will be shown to the Town Council on February 11th, and we hope that you have an interest in it. Thank you so much. Since 2000, the town has set aside funds for improvements along Route 1, and for the past 10 years it has been working on and thinking about what would make the best improvement plan. This presentation explains what improvements the town is proposing to make at this time. The presentation is about 30 or so slides and has three parts. The first part is what is the town doing on Route 1 and why. Second part is what is proposed for Route 1 and how would this be paid for. And the third part is when and how is the town going to get this plan done. So what are we doing and why are we doing it? As probably all of you know, Falmouth's population and activity along Route 1 have been growing in the past 30 or so years, and we expect that it will continue to grow over the next 30 years. What does that mean? It means increased traffic and it means increased demand for services and infrastructure. As I mentioned, for the past 10 years, Falmouth Town Councillors have been working on a plan for Route 1. They would like that plan to help increase business activity, lifestyle activity along Route 1. They want to make sure infrastructure expenditures are efficient and that traffic and pedestrian flows are managed and that overall a shopping area is created that is distinctive, that it's a dynamic place to shop, live, and be entertained.
And Teo, if I could add, this particular plan that we're looking at and this recommendation is not something specific that's been worked on over the past 10 years. This particular plan is something that has been regenerated a couple of times, various versions, and the latest recommendation is the culmination of an effort by the Town Council, staff, and consultants over the last couple of years. And the timing issue here is that we really want to try to accomplish this task within the next couple of years to accommodate a Maine Department of Transportation project.
Right, and we'll be talking about that in a couple of minutes. But really it has been a work in progress, trying to develop a community consensus. And I think that's a very important point, Nathan, that you just made. As we mentioned, this presentation is done on behalf of the Community Development Committee, also known as the CDC. And they're really working on two projects. One is an infrastructure project that involves a referendum that's required by the town charter that's asking Falmouth voters to spend funds on Route 1, even though no new taxes are required to fund this project. The project will be paid for with money already set aside specifically for improvements in the business district. The improvements include sidewalks, trees, pedestrian skilled lighting, landscaped islands, and possibly underground power. The second piece of the puzzle is the zoning piece. Those are the land use rules that govern private development along Route 1. So the infrastructure piece really talks about the road, and the zoning piece discusses how private development can be developed. There are two upcoming actions. One is that the voters, through the referendum, will be asked to approve and spend money on the infrastructure plan, and that's scheduled to happen on June 11th of 2013. The second piece, the zoning piece, does not go to the Falmouth voters, but goes to the Falmouth Town Council, and they are scheduled to review and approve zoning amendments by around May of 2013. Second part of our presentation, what exactly is being proposed and how would this be paid for? There were four guiding principles for this plan. One is to make sure that the plan could handle the anticipated growth, and particularly traffic growth. Second was that the plan be very effective and efficient with spending taxpayer dollars. The third piece is what Nathan already alluded to, that is to make sure that the town's plan dovetailed with the Maine Department of Transportation's plan to repave Route 1. The DOT will do that with its funds, valued at approximately $700,000, and they would like to do that in 2014 or 15. And any work in Route 1 that the town would like to do really needs to precede the DOT's repaving of Route 1. And the fourth key point that the CDC wanted to keep in mind is that they wanted to have a plan that does not depend on any specific zoning amendments.
That's correct.
So here are some images. At the top left image, what Route 1 looks like today, and the bottom right is what it could look like in the future. What you're looking at is Route 1 looking north, and we're looking at the Bath Savings Institution. What you see here is new trees, new lighting, a wider sidewalk, a wider grass esplanade, some landscaped islands in the middle of the street, but also new buildings right along Route 1. And here is a hypothetical building that we placed on the Falmouth Shopping Center property, right on Route 1, just north of the Bath Savings Institution. Here's another view. Now we're looking south on Route 1. We're looking towards the shops at Falmouth Village. And again, you see a landscaped island. You see people walking along the street, the lighting, and on the left edge, you see a bicyclist that's using a 4-foot wide paved shoulder to travel up and down Route 1.
Teo, with regard to this slide, it's a good example of the medians that are being proposed. And throughout the public outreach and input that we've received so far, there have been questions raised about what is the cost to maintain something like this? And how are we going to keep up with mowing and taking care of trees and flowers and that sort of thing? And are there possible other treatments? Those are all very good questions, and we have been doing some research on that and looking at other areas along Route 1 that have similar grass all the way up to the edge of the pavement. We are quite confident that either through staff or through consultants, or rather contractors, that we will be able to maintain these islands. Another thing to point out on the last slide, if you take a look at the wider sidewalk and the esplanade, it has the appearance that it's going to be quite a bit wider than what it is today. But if you go out and measure the existing sidewalk and its placement and the esplanade, it really isn't that much of an addition or width increase from the edge of the curb going towards the business developments. So the point here is that the sidewalk and the esplanade will definitely need to be maintained. The islands in the middle would need to be maintained, but that's all part of the financing and the planning moving forward.
Okay. Let's take another view of what it could look like. This is a view looking north on Route 1. This is near Depot Road. We're looking at Levitt & Sons, the white building in the center of your screen. And again, you see people walking, the trees, the light poles, the landscaped islands. And as you see those islands, there are about 9 proposed islands along this 1-mile stretch of Route 1, have gaps in them allowing for left turns at intersections and left turns at existing driveways that allow access to the various businesses. What the town council was very interested in is to make sure that accessibility to business properties would be maintained after the improvements are completed. Another piece to point out here is overhead power lines. It has been a big part of the discussion by the CDC. In this slide, the overhead power lines remain in place, but that does not necessarily need to be the case. Here is a view where the overhead power lines have been taken away and have been placed underground. It's an image that many people like, but it also is an image that comes at a cost. And the CDC has been asking itself and would like to hear from you if you think that placing underground power lines, if that is important to you or not. In summary, the proposed plan includes various ingredients. We talked a little bit about the landscaped medians. We talked about wider sidewalks. They're proposed to be as wide as 10 feet. We will have crosswalks in various locations, pedestrian lights and street trees. We will also pay attention to stormwater because pavement and buildings do create lots of stormwater that we need to deal with. Currently, traffic signals hang from cables across the street, and they're proposed to be upgraded with poles and fixed mast arms. And there is this question of underground power that we will talk a little bit more about. But last but not least, natural gas has made its appearance on this list, and I will ask Nathan to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Recently, actually, it started about a year ago, the towns of Falmouth, Cumberland, and Yarmouth started to take a look at the feasibility of expanding natural gas throughout all three communities. Ultimately, it led to the three towns working together to put out a request for proposal to utilities to see what interest there might be to bring natural gas to our three communities. Pending the review and approvals of two proposals that we've recently received, natural gas is expected to be included in the Route 1 infrastructure plan. Beyond the Route 1 infrastructure plan in that area, we're looking at natural gas hopefully being expanded throughout the communities. The cost for the natural gas line installation in this Route 1 area project will be borne by others, for instance, the utility companies.
Okay, great. Here's a picture of the plan as if you're hovering in a balloon over Route 1. And what this shows in the light green in the center of the street are these landscaped islands. And the arrows in the center of the street indicate that it's still possible after the improvements are made to make left turns into the various properties, whether you travel north or south on Route 1. What this plan also shows are, in some cases, some adjustments to the existing curb cuts. You see the text right in, out restriction. In the case of driveways that access Route 1 across from an island, you cannot necessarily access that property with a left turn, but only coming from one direction, making a right turn. So how do people access those properties? Our traffic consultant, Tom Errico of T.Y. Lin International, a Falmouth engineering firm, has been suggesting that interconnections could be constructed between businesses. And you see those in the tanned colors. What we're looking at here on the top left side of this screen is Waldo's at the top left, and the real estate antique place on the bottom center, and Morong Falmouth with many cars in the bottom right, and Falmouth Physical Therapy in the middle at the top. It gives you a slight orientation of this section of the plan. This is only one small portion of the plan. We probably would need to look at about 12 of these slides to give you a sense of the entire corridor. The light green area is the grassed esplanade, and the orange area are the proposed sidewalks along Route 1. Nathan, anything else you would like to point out here?
Yes, Theo, I think this slide is actually a very good example of an area that is going to be a challenge if we're going to try to deploy some sort of access management plan that's going to be beneficial for the businesses and traffic flow on Route 1. Throughout some of our first business outreach meetings held last week, we had some property owners in this area inform us that this is going to be quite a challenge for their businesses. And the town needs to hear about that with all of these islands, with all of this project. One of the fundamental focus of this project is to create an area that's pedestrian friendly, excellent traffic flow, and will be good for our businesses. So the last thing that the town wants to do is develop something that isn't going to work for a specific business. So it will be very important for us to continue to hear that input.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are doing a plan, as I understand it, that really is a work in progress, and that is being fine-tuned based on the feedback that the town is receiving. That's what I gather from your comments. And I understand that particular curb cut modifications may still be further modified as we hear from people whether they like these ideas or not. I understand that some have concern with some of those proposed changes, and that others feel that actually additional changes can be added that the consultant had not necessarily thought of. So
That's correct, Taylor. You mentioned earlier that there are going to be 9, or at least there are right now, 9 proposed islands in several of these curb cut reconfigurations. It very well could be at the end of the final design, we're left with 6, 7, maybe 8 islands. They could be smaller, they could be larger. The whole purpose of reaching out to the businesses and the public right now is to get that input before we start spending more time on finite design details.
as I understand it, this plan will not be forced on anyone.
I I just don't think that this plan will be forced on anyone with regard to the access management pieces of it.
Okay, all right. That's, I think, a really important piece to keep in mind. Let's take a look at cost. All of these things cost money, and our consultant in the concept plan has estimated what the various components could cost. And you see here various cost figures to give you an idea. The big number is really the last number, the underground power number, which is currently estimated at about $5.2 million. All of these figures will be reviewed again and fine-tuned in this phase of the plan, which is February, March of 2013.
And Teo, if I could add something further on this slide. We've heard from some people that this appears to be a plan that is heavily focused on aesthetics. And while some of that is true, when you look at new pedestrian scale lighting where there is none now, or street trees where there are no trees now, or other than the existing trees that are out there, the rest of this really is an infrastructure project. The stormwater treatment, traffic signals need to be updated, the roadway geometry. Sidewalks right now in that area are tending to start to show their age, and there are ADA issues with some of those sidewalks that need to be addressed.
Right, and ADA refers to handicapped accessibility.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's really something that the town wants to tackle. If you add all these cost elements up, this project could cost $10.8 million. That would include underground power. If underground power is not part of the plan, we're talking about a $5.6 million cost for this plan. Again, these are estimated concept costs to be further revised. So how would this be paid for? This is proposed to be financed through existing property tax revenues that are generated within the Route 1 commercial area in an area that we call the Route 1 South Tax Increment Financing District. The abbreviation is TIF, and TIF is a state program that's intended to stimulate economic development. Nathan, maybe you can talk a little bit about the map on the right side of the screen.
Sure. The map really denotes the geographic area of all the properties that are officially within this TIF district area. However, part of the project is going to be slightly outside of the TIF district area. In fact, we have performed projects using funds from this funding source outside of the TIF district area in the past, most recently some of the Falmouth Road reconstruction project. So the revenue is being collected from these areas or from these properties shaded in purple. However, the money will be spent and the infrastructure project will include an area slightly outside that area.
Okay, and we're going to look at that a little bit in depth. Just to orient people to the map, excuse me, the big L-shaped black building at the top right side of the screen is the Falmouth Shopping Center. And the other big black outline is Walmart. And then the longer shaped outline at the bottom right side of the screen is Morong, Falmouth. And the big purple area in the bottom left is really the Tidewater Village area. So that gives you a general sense as to where we're at. This district was created in 2000 as a tool, as I mentioned, for economic development on Route 1. What it does is that it sets aside a little bit over half of the commercial property taxes that are currently being paid in that district to be used in a separate fund primarily for public improvements in the TIF district. It benefits Falmouth to do that, set up a separate fund, because it shelters tax revenues that would ordinarily be reduced by state funding that the town receives for its schools and the general fund. As of today, we have about $2.3 million in the Route 1 Tax Increment Financing Fund. This district will expire in 2023. We have looked with the finance director at the funds, and we've concluded that there will be enough money in the TIF fund through 2023 to pay the debt service for infrastructure improvements that are proposed, but not necessarily including underground power, because as you saw, though, that's an expensive proposition. There also would be funding available for other projects that could include future intersection capacity improvements. By extending the TIF fund through 2030, that would allow for sufficient funds to include underground power lines, and TIF districts can be up to 30 years in length, and that will be the maximum term allowed under state law. We are working with the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development to amend the TIF work plan and to extend the TIF period. State approval for both those things would be required of the town. I have one more slide on TIF, which is sort of a summary slide. No new taxes would be required to fund this infrastructure project. No residential taxes are funding this project. The commercial properties in the TIF district do not pay any extra taxes compared to other people elsewhere. They pay the same taxes, just a portion gets set aside. And as a reminder to people, back in 2000, this district had a value of about 27 million, and today that value of all these commercial buildings is $88 million. So we have seen quite a significant increase in that value. Further infrastructure investment, we believe, will help to increase property values in this area. Nathan, any other comments on tax increment financing?
Sure. I think, taking a look at the first bullet where we state no new taxes are required to fund this project, stating that there are no new taxes, what's inferred here is that we plan to use the current and existing revenue source coming from this district area. What we mean by no new taxes is that we're not looking to increase the tax rate.
Okay.
So there will be new funding generated from the current tax stream or revenue stream from this district.
Okay. And that's, I think, important to keep in mind. I'm sure we'll have many more discussions about tax increment financing because it is a complicated piece for many people to put their hands around. So when and how is the town going to get this plan done? As some of you may know, we have been conducting public meetings at the Falmouth Memorial Library. We have met with a variety of business and property owners and got some good feedback on this concept plan. Right now, our consultant is revising the plan. He was participating in these meetings that we held at the end of January, and the Community Development Committee has been reviewing the comments that we have been receiving. A big public forum is coming up, so please mark your calendar for Wednesday, February 27th at 7 o'clock. We'll be gathering in the Falmouth Town Council chambers in Town Hall, where we will roll out the refined version of this plan. And that will be an opportunity for further public comment. To give you an overview of the schedule as we see it currently, this is sort of a summarized version. A more detailed schedule is available on the town's website. As I mentioned, we have been conducting some outreach meeting with the public to talk about the concept plan. We are working on the preliminary plan. In March and April, we expect to hold additional public meetings. And by early April, we expect to present a preliminary plan to the town council. The town council will be asked to send a question to the June 11th referendum, and we will be preparing referendum materials for that. And on June 11th, the Falmouth voters will vote whether or not to expend funds on the proposed plan. If the voters say yes, then in July, starting in July and probably finished by October, we will prepare the required bid documents. We will have continued discussions with property owners to see about improvements that would be located on their property, and do the required permitting. Construction is expected to occur sometime in 2014, probably starting in the spring, maybe done by the fall, hopefully not take too much time. And depending on how quickly that goes, paving would either happen in the spring of 2015 or perhaps, if things go smoothly, it could happen in the fall of 2014. As Nathan already mentioned, construction will create potentially impacts for the public and for business owners, and the town will work with the contractor and the Maine Department of Transportation to make sure that those kinds of impacts are minimized. Accessibility will be maintained to the businesses. Traffic needs to continue to flow on Route 1. I mentioned the construction impacts, and just to emphasize this, as soon as we have our bidding done and our contractor selected, which might be early 2014, we will be able to tackle those kinds of detailed questions. If you wanted to learn more about the Route 1 plan, you can go to the town's website, www.town.falmouth.me.us, or you can contact me, Theo Holtwijk. My direct line is 699-5340, and you see my email address on the screen. We'll be happy to answer any questions. We'll be happy to refer you to whatever material you are interested in. You can view a version of this presentation at your own pace on the town's website by going to the Town Council agenda of February 11th. And I believe this is item 3 on the agenda, if I recall this right, but it will say infrastructure plan, and the presentation has been posted there. Nathan, any parting comments?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Theo, for putting this presentation together, and the most important message that we'd like to get out to the public is this is a very, very large and significant project, combined with the potential of bringing natural gas into Falmouth, and we certainly hope that the public will become well-informed about this project so that we can get the feedback now prior to putting together final questions for a referendum vote in June.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Nathan,
Thank
for
you, Theo.
joining me here today, and we hope you enjoyed this program, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.